Okay, I want to introduce Bill Loretto. Bill's Navajo and Mescalero Apache. And Bill's going to talk a little bit about, Bill's been here a few times, we just went over it 3 times already, to Oberlin for my classes before. And Bill's going to talk a little bit about the boarding schools, his experiences on the res and coming up here in Cleveland, and his life from transition from reservation, boarding schools to reservation to urban, back to the res and back here. So without further ado.
Good afternoon. Or say, ate, asanaan. That's what we say, good afternoon. Yes. My name is Bill Loretto. I was born in Crown Point, New Mexico. My mom is Mescalero Apache. My father is Navajo. Let's see, where could I start? When I was a kid, I was pretty much put into a school system up at the boarding schools. I've been to 2 boarding schools right now, as when I was a kid. One in 1962. The first one was pretty much, like a minimum boarding school. Not very many restrictions back then. I still had very long hair at the time. It was all the way down to my butt, and I pretty much screwed that one up because this was going to be ridiculous, be funny. I was playing in the back because of weeds. I made myself a little bow and arrow. And one kid challenged me, said, "I bet you can't take it. I bet you can't shoot me." So he started running. And I made this handmade bow and arrow, shot it up, straight up, and I just looked at that arrow just going right straight at him. Right on top of his head, I got him. Right on top of his head. He started crying. I didn't mean to, but I was severely punished at the time. And they told me that was too wild being in that boarding school. That same day, they transferred me to a bigger boarding school. This boarding school is like a prison. As soon as I walked in, not more than 2 hours, I was showered down. You know how they treat prisoners, like they shower you down, whatever, and they cut my hair off. All I see is my ponytail boop, fall down to the ground. I was bald, shaved bald. I can't talk my language. They told me not to speak my language. I can't do nothing at all. I was assigned it, everything from bedding, clothing. They took away all my clothing, and they gave government issued clothing. All then I had to go by their rules. Lights out at this time. Going to dinner, lunch, whatever, we had to stay straight in line. Can't move, can't do nothing at all. If we even talk in our own language, we get punished. I'm sure you heard about soap in the mouth. That's what we got. I mean, actually, they washed our mouths out with soap. And I don't know if you know what the powdered soap.
Or like Lysol stuff?
Powdered soap. Back then they used powdered soap. We used to have that put in our mouths too, if we spoke our own language. But at nights we kind of sneak around and we talk, talk our own native tongue. But there's always a little snitch in the group sometimes. And in the mornings he will probably pretty much say he was talking Navajo. Of course, I was pretty much an instigator of everything because I did not like the school system at all. I pretty much fought every time because I wasn't going to give up not talking my own language. There were a lot of dormitories. There was close to about 2,000 natives in that big boarding school,
Where was it at?
Crown Point.
Crown Point.
Yeah,
okay.
Crown Point, New Mexico. That boarding school now, it's no longer exists. They totally plowed it down. It's nothing but rubble now.
They made a road out of the stones.
Then the stones, the rubble that made it out of a road now. It's made out of pavement now. But it was pretty much a pain. Even though in class we can't talk our own language, of course, and I'm left-handed, and they were not allowed to use our left hand. So I was forced to try to use my right hand, and every time because I'm not used to it. I can't write with my right hand. So every time I pick up with my pencil with my left, teacher would come out with those little wooden rulers, or smack my hand every time I pick it up. It's right. She'll put it. It's right with your right hand. I tried, with those big pencils, the big red pencils. So I put it back in my left hand because I'm not used to it. Excuse me. Then she'll come right up again and smack my hand again. She smacked it so many times that my whole hand was swollen. It was swollen big time, and that went on for years. I was there for, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. The whole time I did not give up at all. But they knew they knew every time I walked in that classroom, they knew I was going to write with my left. And sure enough, she'll be sitting like this. If you pick that pencil up with your left, you're going to get spanked. And of course, I do get spanked, but what can I do? But the whole time, I start yelling at her in my own native tongue, and stop that. With my own cursing words, of course. Then of course I was standing in the corner for the longest time. Sometimes I stand there all day, and sometimes I made a spit trail when I was in the corner, because that was my corner. I'll just sit there with my hand, because we not put our head against the corner, and I'll just make a spit trail all the way down. That was my time, make my little spit trail. But the whole time I was there, that's how it was. Sometimes we gather up a couple people, a couple guys. We'll sneak around, try to talk our native tongue. Once we get caught, sometimes we get severely punished all the time. Sometimes if we get severely punished, we clean the whole dormitory with nothing but on our knees. Sometimes we use toothbrushes to get the whole corners out, especially in the what do you call it, restroom. It's huge because it's supposed to. It's made for 50 kids, so it's huge, and we clean up with toothbrushes, the whole thing, all day. We'll just sit there, and they'll check. I hate this woman. Her name is Mrs. Hino. She always wants to be known as Mrs. Hino, and she'll stand over me or anybody else. And if you miss that spot, she always uses her knuckles every time. If you move, oh, that hurt right on top of your head every time. I used to hate her so much. I mean, then she'll walk over there and say, "Oh, you missed a pop, pop." That's all you hear. And one time she was going to do that. What did I do? Oh, we made a little trap for her. I mean, we were trying to get her back, You know, we put it on, you know, those old, you know, we open the door, the thing falls down. And we did one of those. Because she always puts her hair up in a nice bun. I mean, it's so perfect. She came walking in, that water, it was full of suds too. Oh my gosh. And we were all innocent trying to go, I didn't do it. He did it. No, he did it. I didn't got caught at the time. That was lucky me. I don't know why. Everybody knew I did it, but I didn't got in trouble. But just being there was like a prison. I mean, we get in line to go to the mess hall was a good walk. I mean, from here, probably, I don't know where that, it's probably about a good, maybe, let's see, maybe 1,000 yards or something like that. All the dormitories coming to this one mess hall. And you can tell them they're all in line, all of them. It's like a huge army base. That's how it was. And we would watch TV for like maybe 30 minutes, and that's it. I mean, that's our get away from everything time, 30 minutes. And after that, we go to bed, nobody talks, everybody, just like military. I don't know if you know anybody's in the military, but it's like that, military. If you get out of hand, you pay for it. Even in the classrooms are like that. I used to hate saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know whether you guys believe in the Pledge of Allegiance, but I used to hate it. Especially when you're forced to do it. I'm a traditionalist. And I've been they forced me trying to get into Christianity. I probably went through all their churches, and they tried to get me into not LSD, but what was it called? LDS.
What is that?
Huh?
What is LDS?
LDS, Luther, what's it? I don't know that.
Lutheranism.
I don't know. It's some kind of church.
Oh, Mormonism. It's the Mormons.
Yeah, LDS or LSD, or I don't know what it's called.
Latter-day Saints.
Pretty much.
Yes, that one.
Two very different churches.
And they tried to get me into that. They tried other, I don't know how many churches they were trying to get me into. I refused every one of them because I told them I'm a traditionalist. I'm not going to, they keep saying, do you believe in God? Well, where was Jesus born? He was born on the other side of he's an immigrant, so why should I bow myself down to him? I don't know if you guys pray to him, are religious, but I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you, but I'm just that way. Where I told him, so where I kneel down, put my knee down. That's my church. That's where I pray. I don't have to pray to Jesus. Jesus, I consider a creator. I call him that. That's my creator. And what I pray to is my creator. He created everything too, just like God. God and Jesus. I don't believe in Jesus. Because I don't know. It's a different faith, you might say. I was raised as an American Indian. My whole family was born and raised as natives. They don't believe in Jesus. They have their own churches, and that's how I was raised, in their own church. It's called Native American Church. But anyway, the boarding school system really changed my life. It really did. From being a totally speaking Native American to what it is today, what I am today now. I went in, I would say I don't mind because I can talk now. I can talk English pretty well. You know, I'm not going to say I talk big languages. I can't do that. But I will say that that's what I was taught from it. I was taught how to integrate with other people, you might say. How to present yourself, how to say a thank you, how to be thankful what is given. You know, I don't know how you might say it, but I learned a lot from boarding school in a different way. I try to integrate my tradition with theirs, and luckily I got out of it. I know how to write. They taught me that. It hurt when I was learning how to write, because trying to write in your right hand is hard, but I managed to do it. But I'm still left-handed. They tried that so many times, but they never broken me on that. They never broken me in religion. But I think sometimes I think the boarding school for some, like how to dress, how to integrate with other people. How could I say this? It made me a better person, you might say. It made me who I am today, that I can come up and talk to other people now instead of being so prejudiced. At first, I was very prejudiced. I couldn't talk to people like a white person or a dark person. I couldn't do that because I was so stuck up being a native. And just being that way, they looked at me as a savage. I didn't like that. I was too much, you might say, stoic. Nobody liked that. So I tried to change that a little bit, and the school system made sure that I try to get into that, try to make me be more, try to be more sensitive to the other people. You know what I mean? Try to talk to them, try to understand their culture too, which I learned it all myself. Back then, encyclopedias were the main thing. So, as much as possible, I learned it on my own. I went to encyclopedias. Good thing I learned how to. That's one thing I appreciate from being in boarding school. I learned how to write and I learned how to read. So the more I read, the more I went into encyclopedias, and I learned the cultures of the white man, and I learned the culture of the black man, and I learned the cultures of everybody else, and I kind of opened myself up to that, and my prejudice kind of went away. I was very prejudiced. I mean, to this day, I think I get along with a lot of people, and I don't think it's not that bad. I don't think. A lot of people still think I am a savage. I don't know why. A lot of people think that we don't exist anymore. I go to powwows a lot. One little kid asked me, "I thought Native Americans were extinct." That shocked me. I said, "What does your parents say?" I said, "Well, my parents think that the natives are gone. They don't exist no more." So that kind of opened up I opened up myself. So I think I do thank the boarding schools for that. That's the only thing that I thank the boarding schools is the learning system. They taught me a lot. how to speak, how to act, how to integrate with other people. But the way I was treated to learn, that's the thing I don't like. I was forced to learn how to dress. I was forced to clean. I was forced to, how was a better word to say this? Did not like the way I was treated. Because of that, I became how you say it, an outcast of everything because of how I was treated in the boarding school system.
Would you say an outcast in society itself or just as a part of the boarding school system?
Out of the boarding school system,
Okay.
because I started to hate every last one of them. Every teacher, I hated them because I know because that teacher will abuse me. I know that teacher will come up and tell me, okay, you're going to get spanked because I am using my left-handed again. Or I might say something in my own native tongue. Or that's one thing that really got to me is that I can't talk my own native tongue. But I caught one of the teachers speaking their own my native tongue to another teacher, and said, "Wait a minute, something's wrong with this. How come they're allowed to talk their own native tongue and I can't?" So I went to the principal and said, "How come they can't? I mean, why are they talking in their own native tongue to each other and we can't? I mean, there's thousands of little kids can talk their native they can't talk their own native tongue. Why?" And there's only, every time I go there, all the adults they talk their native tongue, but we can't. And I was even yelled at in my native tongue at me, saying that I was a low life, blah blah blah, in my tongue. But in return, I can't say that. I can't speak my own native tongue back. And if I do, I get punished for it. Now, what's wrong with that? I don't know. But that gave me a little more incentive of being a little bit more stronger of who I am now. I don't know how you guys feel about waking up, being forced out of bed, don't have a chance to pee or anything like that. You end up right away. You guys, you start eating. Not eating. I mean, cleaning up, cleaning the floors. Get on your knees. Blah blah blah. I mean, that was ridiculous how we were treated in the boarding school system. We're just constantly being yelled at. I know it's just like military. We were, how you say it? We were. What's another word for it? Being forced to learn.
You're being forced assimilation. They were forcing you to be what they wanted you to be.
Yeah. That I didn't like. I was like all of us were like robots, or we can't smile at each other. Even though we smile at somebody, like me and my friend, what was his name? He got severely punished one time. I looked at him and he smiled at me and he said, "Hey, how you doing?" In Navajo, he went like this. And as soon as he went like that, that guy got up, and I'm going, "Holy shit, he's going to get it." And sure enough, he did. Grabbed him by his ear. They disappeared into the back room. All I hear is whack, whack, whack. And I could hear him cry out. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that could have been me too." Then as soon as he walked out that door, he was trying to hold it in like he wasn't crying at all. And he looked at it and said, "Don't you cry, don't you cry." And he's trying not to cry. You can tell he's hurting. But he went back in line. I'm going, wow. I wonder what happened if I would have done that. I would have probably flipped out. But years I was in there. I was in there first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Then on my 6th year, I finally gave it. I finally lost it. And they were getting even worse. The older you get, the more you get punished because the more stubborn you get. So I retaliated. You wouldn't believe what I did, but one time me and these guys got together. We hated BIA buses.
Bureau of Indian Affairs buses.
So I took off my sock.
Lots of Indians around.
Back then they had the pickups. They had the nozzles on the side. I don't know if you ever seen those. I'm an old guy, so. But back then they had the nozzles right at the front where you just open it up. They didn't have no springs inside, so it's easy to get into the gas. So I got a hanger, got my sock, soaked it, took it out, and this guy had a lighter. I lighted it, and go boom, that thing got, I thought it was just going to be a little tiny flame, I don't know what I was thinking. All of a sudden, just started getting bigger and going, "Oh shit, boys, let's go!" All I saw, this whole bus just went boom. It blew up, and the second one got on fire. There were like 6 of them all caught on fire. We're just like, "Oh my gosh, we're dead." And guess what I did? I ran back to the dormitory with one sock on. I'm trying to be innocent. Said, "I didn't do it." How come you have one sock off? Well, I don't know. And you smell like gas. Do I? I don't smell it. We all got in trouble. The next day, we were publicly humiliated. There were, I think, 4 of us. We all sat on a chair. They got a clipper. That's when I finally got hair about that long. They shaved us bald. They even shaved our eyebrows off. And we sat there, and they were talked in the dirtiest language they could be. We were totally humiliated. I can't even say it now. And they stripped us naked, of course, and we paraded around like idiots and said, "Okay, dance around like idiots, what you guys did," and spanked us, and our butts were red, and they marched us all the way around the dormitories, because dormitories are huge. It's 2,000 kids. We marched all the way around with all the way around naked and all the way around back. I think twice they paraded us around. And this guy was talking in one of those, what you call bullhorns or whatever they're called, saying that we did this, they did this, they did that. And all these kids are laughing. They were just laughing. Was like, oh my gosh. Some of them going, yeah, yeah. About 80% they were happy that I blew them up. There's a lot of them were saying, yeah, they were all going, why could we done that? We could have done that too. I say, yeah. I was kind of smiling at the same time. Every time I smile, they go, boom, get my head smacked. But then we went to the mess hall. We were all bald. We were in our pajamas. And we got fed like that. We were the first ones in there. And they gave us little tiny ones. It's like, and it said, of course, they announced it that we're this and that. These are the ones that blew up the vehicles that are outside parked, and maybe all those kids, they all stood up and went. They were all clapping. That's so funny. It just went total chaos. I mean, all the teachers, all the I don't know what they call them, but they all trying to shut them up. They were all yelling. That thing was just went totally. Cause the mess hall's huge, and everybody was just yelling, and I mean they were just cheering all for us. We're all going, yeah. But that was a good part. The only time I had fun was that time, even though I was totally humiliated. Blah blah blah. I can't even say it. But that night was horrible. We stood up all night long. We couldn't. Won't let us go to sleep. We stood all night. It was because I guess we blew up like close to about $50,000 worth of.
In those days, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, $50,000 worth, and I guess they were pissed. Cops were there. We were. Navajo police didn't care. I mean, they kind of looked at, yeah, oh well. So well, I mean, no, not much we can do about because I guess Navajo police and the BIA they're not the same system. But the Navajo police kind of said, shh. But they finally got a hold of my parents after a week of punishment. I mean, they told me, said, okay, you can't be here no more. We can't train you or whatever they said. I don't remember. You're too radical. You're like an animal. You can't be tamed with the other guys. So we contacted your parents. You had to deal with your parents from here on. So in a couple of days, finally my dad came. I see him down in the hallway because my dad is 6'4". He's a tall man. And I see him coming down the hallway and go, oh my gosh, I'm dead. I am dead. He came up to me and said, son, let's go home. He put his hand around me and said, let's go home. That's it. He just grabbed my duffel bag and said, see you guys. I think that was the worst. That was the best time of my life. When he said, let's just go home. He said, we're done. We walked out and that was it. Everybody was like, their jaws dropped and going, that's it? You're not going to punish me? Why? I mean, you guys did what? He survived all 6 years, and you were not allowed for me to see him. I didn't see my parents. I then saw my father until now. For 6 years, I didn't see my father. 6 years, I didn't see my mom, my brothers and sisters, because I wasn't allowed. They weren't allowed to see me. So I was so happy just to see my dad. And I even cried when my dad said, son, let's go home. I think that was the best time of my life.
You have any questions so far?
In the school, what was the makeup of the teachers for Native people versus white people?
What was the makeup?
Like, how many teachers came or were Native or were white?
I think it's 60% white, and a lot of the natives were mostly like they're not fully teachers. They're just like how you call them aides. But the rest were all white, and they were strict. They were totally strict on them. But the aides were, what they can do, nothing, because they were paid. So they just there. I mean, like getting books, helping us out, how to use stuff and how to count and all that other stuff. That's about it. But the aides were, but the teachers were mostly like taskmasters. They were forced to do what we don't want to do. If I was a teacher, I would have probably learned a lot from the aide than the teacher herself or himself. I would have been not as rude if they were like the aides. But I think I'm thankful for some of them. Not a lot. I'm thankful that I can talk English. I'm thankful that I can write. I'm thankful that I can integrate with other people. That's about it. They taught me. But other than that, I think 80% was all bullshit. I mean, they just treat me like garbage. I don't know why. What was the reason of trying to teach me garbage? You know, what was that all about? That to this day I still don't understand it.
Were the residents, the other children that lived there, were they all Navajo or for the most part from the area?
A lot of them were all Navajos
Mm-hmm.
because they're all from the reservations and they can't go out nowhere. And parents have no, because we were picking out from a lot of the kids that were there were taken from their parents at a young age. The BIA would go out and pick these kids from their homes. And
They would just go to the home and take the children?
yeah,
Whether the parents agreed or not?
no.
Right, okay.
They will just go up there, take them, and fill up the buses, take them to the boarding school. That's where they fill it out. Some of them that had names at the time, so they will give them names. So that's how. Luckily, the only reason why I got into the boarding school system because I was bad. But even my brother said he was taken from the boarding school system, from his home, from my mom and dad. That's why my mom and dad were kind of disappointed, and that's why they were happy to see me again because they did that to my brother, and they didn't see my brother for 6 years, and they did to me too. So we were pretty much taken from our homes just to be taught.
And where did you live? What area did you live in? What reservation did you live in?
I lived on the Navajo reservation. I lived about, oh my gosh, the Navajo reservation is huge. So, it's a place called, I don't know, you guys know where Gallup is? Gallup, New Mexico? No? You know where Gallup is?
Don't get out after dark.
Okay, if you, about, you know where Pruitt is?
No.
Through?
No, I just
Grants?
I know it vaguely because we drove like through it once.
Okay. There's a town called Grants, and from just a little tiny uranium mine town back in the day. And I lived off the reservation on about maybe 50 miles from there. So I was pretty much raised on the reservation.
Did you live in a traditional home?
Yeah,
Could
I
you-
lived
could
in
you
a
explain
hogan.
that?
Yeah, I lived in a home. It's called a hogan. It's made out of logs. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided hogan, and it's the insulation was mud and straw. And that's what there's a mother hogan and a father hogan. The mother hogan is the traditional 6-sided with the rounded top. The father hogan is like a teepee. That's the father with the side coming out. That's the father. They would consider as the father teepee, father home. And there's adobe. My father built his own house, or hogan, out of adobe, mud and straw, and he made it all by himself, all the way from the top to from the ground on up. The reservation I live on is approximately 250 square, acres. So it's huge. My land is huge. Well, I have all my sisters and brothers, they kind of passed. They're all passed on. So there's only one brother left now. I used to have 6 sisters and 7 brothers. So I'm gonna have one brother left and me. So when he passes, that whole land is mine. Back in the day, we used to have horses, a lot of sheep. We used to have like 200 sheep, cattle. Pretty much, I rather would have liked living that way because I took care of everything. I mean, my own way. My father would talk to me. He never spanked me. My dad never spanked me. He never hit me. I never seen him drink. Neither my mom. She never hit me. She'll sit me down and talk to me. I never seen my parents drink whatsoever. That was one thing that was amazing. Religion-wise, my dad we would build a sweat house. We sweat almost every other week. I don't know if you guys ever sweat before. Nowadays, they use traditional Lakota sweats, but Navajo sweat is made out of mud, and it's dug about 2 feet under, and with the traditional Father Hogan style, and the rocks were made out of lava rocks, and it gets so freaking hot in there. But my dad would sing. I know some of the songs. I vaguely know some of the songs that he used to sing. Let me see, how did it go? Let's see. MSA que es más que usted, viste como nato sería, o banana se que yana he, oh mana. I don't remember that one. It has 4 doors. The first door, there's a second door, there's a third door, and there's a fourth door. Every door you have to sing, and it goes around whoever's in that circle. Lakota has has also 4 doors.
We call them tiers too. There's 4 different times, so there's 4 different tiers.
So every time they sing, it goes around, and we pray as it goes around to the fireman or fire chief, and fire chief. Then he goes out and he prays, and in Navajo way, he goes out and he blows the eagle whistle. That's the first door. Then he comes back in. Then we start all over again. It takes like a good hour just for one door. And those whole time it gets so hot. I mean, some people will collapse and they'll just trying to breathe underneath because it's cooler down there, or try to. But the chief will say, no, you can't do that. You got to sit up and you got to pray. I mean, it is hard. It is if you want to be a very traditional person, you got to go through it. I mean, it is hard. I mean, you burn inside, you breathe the steam, it just hurts your lungs. But when you're done with the 4th door, when the door opens up, the flap opens up, you can feel that breeze just comes in. You feel your lungs like this big of a hole. You know, it feels so good. In Navajo traditional, you go outside, and a lot of Lakotas, they stand outside and they chatter, blah blah blah, and they go out and go eat. Navajos are different. They come out, they sit around, they sit, and they put sand on themselves. They totally put sand and rub the sand off, all the sweat off. As they're doing it, they're praying again, praying to Mother Earth, saying thank you very much for putting me through all this. Then they braid each other's hair because our hair is our life. I mean, if it gets cut, that's part of us is gone. So it is. That's why I like being a traditionalist, because I think I'm more closer to Mother Earth than trying to go into a church. I mean, I'd rather not go into a multi-million-dollar church than kneeling down. What's that? $1 million church versus just kneeling down. That's my church, and it's free. That's why I don't like going to churches. Because why you want to go into $1 million church? The same thing as me just kneeling down, and that's my prayer. That's all I do. I have my own pipe. If I want a pipe, I smoke my pipe. I pray to my Creator. I said, thank you for everything that I have that's been given to me. Everything's been given to me, except for my car and gas and all that, money. But life-wise, I have it all. I don't have no disappointments in what I have. I got great grandkids now. I have beautiful daughters. I mean, what else could I want? I mean, wherever I go, I make great people. I make good friends. I'm not prejudiced anymore. Why be prejudiced? Except for, I just don't like people making fun of us. I mean, that's where Bob Roca comes in. I just don't like being, I don't know, what do you guys think about Yahoo? Do you guys agree with that or no?
Chief Wahoo, the logo of the Indians, Cleveland Indians mascot.
You guys didn't agree with that? Do you guys like it, or do I smile like that? Because I don't have no teeth anyway, so. I mean, there's a purpose that we have being a native. I mean, the caricature that you see on the Cleveland Indians is not right at all. Red means it. All the colors that it has on there, it means a different thing in my tradition or any else's tradition. Red is the blood that's been bled when we were surrounded or captured. I mean, we were bled. A lot of them lost their lives. A lot of them were cut. Their ears were cut off or sell. Nose were clipped off or sell. That's where the red man came from. I don't know if you guys know where red man came from. That's where when we were actually put up on stilts. We were bled. Where the blood was actually running down. That's the red man right there. That's how red man was named, because of the blood running down. There's different types of eagle feathers. They're all different. What Yahoo has is a red feather. That's the red feather. That's the holy feather of all feathers. And why that's on that one, I don't understand. That's one of the holy feathers. Red. We are gifted with different types of dyed feathers, eagle feathers, and that's if you become a wise person in our a very wise elder, 80s, 90s, 100s, you are gifted with the red feather. That's where all the knowledge, the wisdom, everything you have learned when you were a kid, that is what goes into that feather. That's why it is a gifted to a elder. That's why it's a red eagle feather. And there's white. And there's the plain. I have eagle feathers, and I got tons of them. Those were all gifted to me because you can't buy them. You don't just we don't kill eagles. Everybody thinks we kill eagles. I don't. I never killed an eagle. Everything is gifted to me because everything I have is I deserved it. I mean, everything I have is I deserve to have those eagle's feathers. It can't be taken away from me. I can gift it to other people, but they have to deserve. They have to earn that eagle feather, just like I have. And on the Yahoo we don't smile like that a lot. I mean, it's to me it I don't know. This I don't know how you say it. I have the word for it. How would you say it? Huh?
Symbolism?
Another word for it. That's a good one. I don't know. When you smile, we don't smile like that. I can't even talk.
It's a caricature.
Caricature, yeah. I don't. What?
Racist.
It's a racist thing, you might say too. I mean, why? I mean, of course, it's been there for, I don't know, maybe 50 years, 60 years now, and we're just now coming out saying that it's wrong. I don't know much about it. I don't know much about the history.
Well, actually, we were demonstrating in the 50s. When the Wahoo came out, we started demonstrating in the 50s. And a lot of people don't know it because we didn't get the coverage. We didn't get the media didn't cover it. And that was right after the beady-eyed, hook-nosed, buck-toothed caricature. But Goldfish or Goldsmith in 47 was commissioned by the Cleveland Indians to make the Chief Wahoo, and that's when it came out. That's when the demonstration started. So a lot of people would come to us at the demonstrations and say, "You're getting on the bandwagon. You guys didn't do anything before," but actually we did. It just never received any coverage, and people didn't know about it. The other ones prior to that, except for the beady-eyed, hook-nosed, buck-toothed caricature, from 1915 on, were fairly dignified. They were chieftains with headdresses of some sort. Of course, the one that was out before 47, that was by far the worst one, with this, disgusting character with a big nose and big
Buck
teeth,
nose.
buck teeth, and we still have at times at the demonstrations people telling us why they wear this outrageously gaudy shirt or jacket, that they're honoring us. And when, I simply say don't honor us. Please don't honor us. Most of the time when we're there, though, the people there that are going, the fans that are going to the games are usually inebriated. They're not just drunk, they're inebriated. They can't even walk, half of them. In the beginning, we have a 2 to 4, somewhere around 2 o'clock, they're not that bad, but as the time moves on, they get worse and worse, and it's pretty bad.
But other than that, sometimes I don't mind it because it's a game. I mean, it's the baseball that people go and see, but I don't think it's necessary to have somebody to put a mascot, their mascot, of us. I don't think that's right. I don't think it was never right. just like put in you or a white person. I don't know how they would they do a white person.
It's a great question.
Fighting Irish.
Mm.
I mean,
And I
how would
guess
you?
being
How
white
would,
and Irish at one point was debatable.
yeah, how would you do a white person? How would you? I mean, no offense,
We
but how
know.
would you do a black person?
I mean,
Black.
so many ways, yeah.
I like Sambo or like a black mammy.
Yeah, they got rid of that. I remember that one.
But you know, they got rid of it, they sued. And
Yeah.
the American community in Cleveland sued them, and they lost. They won down the road by boycotting it. That's how they got the Sambo logo and name changed. But it wasn't at that time considered racist, and
Yeah.
they lost it. Do you know anything about that?
I do, but I didn't know it was like used for a logo. I just know like
It was a
minstrel shows
restaurant
Oh,
and-
yeah,
chain.
it's a restaurant
Yeah.
chain.
It was here in Cleveland. When I first saw it, I actually thought, I'm driving by Rockside Road in Bedford, and I saw this gaudy sign of an African American, and it was called Black Sambo, and I was thinking, no, nobody would do that. That's just blatantly racist, you know. I didn't think anything of it. And when I let one by again, and I saw that it was actually a restaurant chain, I was shocked.
Yeah.
What year
I
was
was
that?
shocked. Pardon me?
What year was that?
It'd be in the '70s.
Yeah, mid-seventies is
Yeah, it'd be
when
in the
that was
70s.
all phased out. It was popular, not only in the north, but in the south. It was a large chain at one point. And over the years, as that language and image became unfashionable,
Mm.
the chain diminished. But there were still some holdouts.
But yeah, what was it, Aunt Jemima?
And Jemima, they're still
Still,
out.
yeah.
There's
out,
another
yeah.
example. I mean, there's a lot of
And,
them out there, but.
Rice, what's it called?
Oh,
Uncle
the yeah,
Ben.
The who?
Uncle Ben's, right?
Uncle Ben's rice,
right,
yeah.
right, yeah.
He never
Another
did
one.
rice, I don't think.
But, you know, how much time do we have left?
About 50 minutes.
Okay. Bill, I wanted to, if you can recall a conversation we had a long time ago when we were here at Oberlin, other classes, and you spoke of an encounter you had at one of the cities off the reservation.
Oh,
Yeah.
after I graduated from high school, I graduated in '79. This is how prejudice, we're talking about prejudices now. I went to this college, it's called Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. The whole college is on top of a plateau, and it is Indian owned, and it is totally native, can go there for free. But if you're a white person, they have to pay megabucks, and they don't like it whatsoever. So they're so prejudiced against the natives. But one time I was going back to my dormitory or back to my hotel. It was in the middle of winter, so I passed this bar every day. So one night I was going back to my hotel, and these football players saw me, and they started to bug me. They started to, make fun of me. How did you get to blah blah? You go to college for free. You go do this, all that, and they're starting to push me around. And where I got to pushing me around, where I got frustrated and I wasn't going to fight them. They're football players, for Christ's sake, And I got in a fight with them. And I was doing not too bad, I guess, but they beat me severely. All I remember was a 2x4 coming at me, at my face. That was the last time I remember. They dragged me behind, I guess they dragged me behind a dumpster in the middle of winter. Dragged me behind a dumpster for dead, I guess. Luckily, a cop came by around 4 o'clock and saw my boots sticking out from the snow. And he said he grabbed the boots and he pulled on it, he dragged me out. My whole face was caved in. the whole face, all the way down.
Were these students?
Huh?
They were students.
They were students. And, cause I know them too. I mean, I saw them on football practices
Yeah.
too. My whole face, all the side of my face is reconstructed. I have plates, screws, you name it, I have it in there. And I tried. This is the second year of my college, and I tried going back. I couldn't do it because I couldn't concentrate. I'm constantly blinking. I had many seizures. So I only went back for about maybe half a semester. I have to withdraw because I couldn't do it. The boys that did it, the football players that did it, they were not punished. I don't know what happened. I don't know anything happened to them at all. But only if, I'm not going. I told this before, but the main person that did it, I told my friends about it too. I used to have tons of friends. That one person got never heard of again. I don't know what happened to him. I'm not saying what happened to him. But I was, just because of that, I was severely prejudiced. I was, just because of that, I'd never finished college. I think I woke up again too. You know, my boarding school days came back. I mean, it wasn't necessary. I didn't do nothing to them. Just because I was a native and they're white, and I don't know. To this day, I don't know why. Maybe just because of native. They're just prejudiced just because they had to pay mega bucks for being there. So that's one thing that really hurt me. I would have, because I was going for, I forgot now. Commercial arts for 4 years, but I never finished it. I tried going back, I couldn't do it. To this day, I don't know. I think I still have little mini seizures sometimes. Sometimes I'm beginning to be very forgetful. And it still hurts sometimes. Especially when, I don't know if you believe in how people always say when it gets real, the weather changes, my whole side of my face tingles. I have no feeling here. There's no feeling whatsoever down here. All this side is all reconstructed. I got a plate going from here to here. There's one screw. You can feel the screws. And when you're looking at my gums, they're all stitches, scars inside. I have no cartilage. You know, the cartilage that's in your nose. I have none of that. So when I get, when I have a cold, it just strips out. It's embarrassing. Or sometimes when I'm talking to people, it'll just all of a sudden just strip out. It's embarrassing sometimes. I just go. So, but that's a part of my life that's got really ruined. I try not to be prejudiced sometimes, but it's hard not to. That day, I think I got prejudiced again too. I started to hate the white man. I'm not supposed to, but I was afraid of them again. It's like starting all over. It took a while, but I'm close to 60 now. I still don't. Some of them I still kind of iffy about them. It's just it changed my world right there because of the pain I went through. And it wasn't necessary. But I get along with a lot of people, That's how my life was. And there's still a lot more after that. just because of prejudice, you know. I don't know why. I'm sure. Have you ever been through it?
Been through what specifically?
People look at you differently.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, even here, people are liberal, but like still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just because the color of the skin. I just don't understand. I mean, we bleed the same blood. Everything's red. I don't particularly like it, but I get along with a lot of people. They just don't get along with me. I don't know. Do I look different? Am I strange? What is it? I mean, put a big question mark on my head and say, okay, what is this guy? Why I'm being hated? Or why are we being hated? I mean, I done nothing. Okay.
Any questions? Sundance?
No, I don't have any questions.
Any statements?
Have I answered everybody's question, or I mean, I can answer just about anything.
Boarding schools were still around up until the 1960s, and a lot of schools are being torn down, especially in Michigan. They had a lot there, and what they're uncovering, and I don't know if they uncovered it at your boarding school.
Oh yeah, in where I grew up in Crown Point, there's still a boarding school that still exists. There's another boarding school they built, but this boarding school is much different. They can go home anytime they want to. The parents can check them out anytime they want to. If they want to stay, they can stay. But they are regulated now. They're being checked on. They have to be. I guess might say they under the. It's run by totally Navajo Nation now. And if there's a white person, they have a seriously background check. If there's any abuse, anything like that, they can't go in. So that boarding school is totally run by natives.
Some of the boarding schools were actually military bases at one time, like Carlisle. Where they put Geronimo, that was, let me see, where was that? Oh, that was also a military base. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Florida?
Florida, yeah. St. Augustine, that was a military base. There's a college in Kansas City, I can't remember the name, that was also a military base and is now a Native American college. But what I started to say is that a lot of the boarding schools, when they started to, when they closed them and they started investigating them, they found a lot of bodies, a lot of remains of young kids, unmarked graves. Carlisle, for one, in Pennsylvania, they found a lot. I think they found 103. Michigan, they're still finding bodies in some of these locations that other groups have gone in to investigate using cadaver dogs to find the bodies. So the ones that I was up in one in Saginaw, Michigan. There's a boarding school there, and I was a part of a movie, and we showed the movie there at the old boarding school, and we had a panel. But right after that, they uncovered a lot of bodies there. And I think they probably destroyed the building by now. But there was a lot of things that were going on that just people didn't know about. So, when they took children, from the families, a lot of times the families never saw them because they were transported 2,000 or 3,000 miles away. And they never saw their children again. So if any of you can imagine somebody coming in and taking your children and you've never seen them again, the impact it would have on the family and of course the parents. And this is what they went through. Even though it's it's a part of the past. A lot of it isn't, it's not a part of the curriculums. A lot of people don't know about this. They don't know about electric chairs that were used to punish children in Canada. They have 800 tribes there. If they were bad, they would just put them in this chair and they would put voltage on them. Just so many ways where they beat the hell out of them. They just beat them. So when Bill's talking about how they beat them, they had paddles with holes in them. They had barber straps that they used for sharpening razor blades. They're extremely thick. I can still feel them. They're extremely thick, and they used devices like that, or they just punched you out. I mean, when I was in Boys Town, and I used to run away a lot, they would take you to the hospital to have you checked out, and then they'd stop the elevator. By the time I got out of there, I ended up in the hospital for 3 days because I couldn't walk. That's how bad they beat me up like a man, like they beat up a man. So, you know, people don't know about it. So this is a great opportunity for us to talk about it. You know, you have people that have gone through it and been a part of it. And it's really important to film this and to pass this on so people see what really happened.
Yeah, I ran away from boarding school. I don't know how many times, 7, maybe 10 times. Tried to run away. And every time I ran away, they knew where I was going. I was trying to go home. And sure enough, halfway, they know where I was going. They were waiting right there for me. And then when they catch me and when I get back, I used to be beaten so bad where I had to lay in bed for days. And they would force me to go up and get in line and go to the mess hall. If I can't walk, they'll make me walk. And it is something that I did not like at all neither. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, I was trying to get home. And I don't want to stay here. I mean, they're not teaching me nothing.
Did they ever handcuff you
I was
to the
handcuffed.
bed?
I was tied to the
Handcuffed
bed.
to a bed for about a month.
I was tied to a bed with my with shackles on my ankle, and I was shackled onto my bed. I was maybe 2 feet. I can go. That's it. And I couldn't. It's chain. It's a big, huge tire chain. That's what it was, and I was shackled to it like a little puppy. I was like, oh my gosh. And that was it. I mean, that's how it was until my punishment was like maybe a week. Then I was allowed to walk again. That they take them off and said, "Don't say nothing, or else we'll start this all over
Yeah, they'll
again."
beat you again.
Yeah. So we were not allowed to say anything. The Miss Henia will say, "If you say something like this, will be 2 times worse." So, by the time I take off those shackles, said, don't say a word, don't cry, don't do nothing, walk normal. If you say one word, those shackles will go right back on you. So, when I get those shackles off, it's like, oh my gosh. Deep in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could just run again. I wish I could just run away again. This time I'm not gonna go home. This time I'm just gonna live out in the woods. You know how little kids think. But that never happened again. I mean, I shut my mouth up. I walked. I'm like straight up and down. I try not to hobble. And it was hard. I mean, some of the kids will look at my ankle and say, "What happened?" And I'm not allowed to even talk to the kids. And I wouldn't say nothing. Tear run down my face, and I said nothing. Just I tripped or something like that. We were playing ball or something like that, and said, "We don't play ball." Go, oops. So that's how it was. Maybe that happened to me maybe 10 times the whole time I was there. That was 6 years I was there. So I was chained about 10 times.
Good question. So if they're like going to homes and like snatching kids, are they snatching kids who aren't even like home? Like we're just like walking around, just like taking them to the schools. Has that ever happened?
What my brother told me is they pulled up and they were asked if do you have any kids, and my mom and of course my mom and father said yes we do. Okay, he needs to go to school. So they don't. My what could they say? They just grab them, give them. Of course they'll lie to you. Say, oh yeah, he'll learn a whole bunch before you can come and visit him anytime you want to. He'll be, presentable and all that. We'll teach him a lot, and they'll just grab him. They say he was just forced into this little white BIA bus, and that was it. He never saw his father and mom till 6 years later, because it was only from kindergarten to 6. That's it. Then after that, 7th grade, then you can go into elementary. Then government-run schools again, but that was totally different.
The only difference between the United States and Canada was that Canada, the Canadian government actually paid the Catholic Church per child to care for that child because that child was deemed mentally ill. Native Americans were considered mentally ill. So the state or the country paid for that. And probably about 5 years ago, the Catholic Church was on the brink of bankruptcy because they were suing the Catholic Church. Some, I guess they recovered or they're still in existence there, but there was a, it finally came, a lot of people didn't know about it, about the boarding schools. How many here knew about boarding schools? You did. And how did you learn? How did you know about it?
Like we learned about it in my high school.
In high school? I'm amazed. And you?
Excuse me. I read a lot. I watch a lot of documentaries.
Good.
Listen to a lot of podcasts.
And you knew about it?
Yeah, I mean, high school, like, it's mentioned. It's not, like, gone into detail, but it's, like,
Mhm.
mentioned a lot.
But they're using just all on books too.
Yeah. The internet has a tremendous amount of access, and it's really amazing. I've seen a lot of Indian stuff, if you want to call it that, that was just almost laughable about these so-called Indian people writing, but the sterilization of Native Americans, just punch it right in. Boarding schools, you just punch it right in. A lot of information there that was never available before, people didn't know about. The electric chairs, I bet you a lot of people didn't know they used electric chairs in there. Lobotomies, they weren't lobotomies, they were electrical stimulation. That if you saw one flew over the cuckoo's nest, which probably you've never heard of, but there's a movie that
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, but there was a guy named Will Sampson who was a
Native.
full-blooded
Chief?
Cheyenne guy. Pardon me?
Living Chief.
Yeah, he was cool. I met him. I met him and his son. His son looks exactly like him. They're both really big guys. Yeah, but I met them a long time ago. But they used this electrical therapy. So, but for the most part, you don't know because it's not a part of the curriculum. I'm very surprised, but the internet has a lot of access to it, so it's really good.
Yeah, a lot of the school systems don't teach that.
And I've had the same experience. People come up my way. I thought Indians were dead. I didn't know you guys were still alive. I thought you were extinct. I'm sure you heard it more than once.
Oh, yeah, because I go around, I do presentations for elementaries and schools. To this day, I still do. I do dances. I put in full regalia, and after that, we have like 5 maybe, because there's different types of dances. There's jingle, there's fancy shaw. I'm a traditionalist. I dance traditional. And after everything's done, we ask the little kids and said, they ask questions. And a lot of them said, do you one kid, like I said, we thought Native Americans were extinct. One kid said, do you still live in teepees? One said, do They use mattresses. One said, you go to Kmart, how you guys eat? Do you still kill for food? I mean, these kids have no concept how we are. I mean, it's weird how their parents were taught. I don't know where they get it from. I mean, the parents are educated enough where that we still shop at Walmart and we live in houses just like they do. And one kid even told me, said, "Oh, do you dress like that? How do you drive a car and all that? Will you wear that stuff?" And I said, "No, only wear this when I do dances or." I don't know if you guys been to powwows. Who's been to powwows? Wow!
You gotta go to a powwow.
You guys gotta
They're so
go to
cool.
a-
Yeah, they're really great. A lot of different nations there. It's just a lot of fun.
Is that
Yeah.
something generally open to the public?
Yeah,
It is
it's-
open to the public. Yeah, they started in Denver in the 1800s by the Bureau of Indian Affairs to sell they forced us to become farmers and herders, and a lot of us were plains people, we were hunters, but to sell our products, to sell, pardon me?
I know how to use one.
To sell the products and that. So that's how the powwow started, and then it became a big part of, society, getting together and hanging out and seeing people. And we even developed singing. We have vocables where we don't use words. Well, Bill was using words, but that we just use sounds. Hey, hey, yo. No words. So these other tribes can all sit down at the drum nations and sing. That's really cool.
I mean, a lot of them, we put in our own language into it too. Like us, like the ones I was saying that, dear mother, help me, I'm bleeding for you. Then I think the second door is, help me, Father, let me bleed for you. Or bleed for you also means sweat, because we rather bleed than sweat. You know what I mean? That's how it is said in our Navajo language, but actually it's supposed to be sweat. But saying sweat in Navajo is about that long. Saying to bleed is about that long.
Is it both genders in a sweat lodge, or
Huh?
is it both genders in a sweat lodge?
In my culture, males only allowed and females are not allowed. In Lakota, I think it's co-ed now, a lot. It's changed a lot. And if somebody comes up to you and say, "Okay, I want you to pay $500 to sweat," don't do it. Or if they say, "Give me $500," well, let's go to Sundance. Don't do it. They're cons.
Any ceremonies that we have are not for sale. They lose their power. They're not for sale. The sweat lodge represents the womb of a woman.
That's me.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's very, the ceremonies are very important to us.
You can
Physically
you can go through it.
and spiritually, because of course physically you're extracting through the sweating the impurities.
Yeah, that's me getting the Coke.
And so if
That's at Penn State.
powwows were first made by the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
They started, they were started by that so that they could sell their products, whether it was cattle or whatever they farmed. Powwows are originally,
Does that
made
term
from a-
also come from? Was
I'm
it just
sorry?
like the term powwow, was that just like? a
no,
new
I,
word
I,
in
I don't
term-
really know. Do you know where the real term
just
came from?
created it?
So.
I think
the
it was Buffalo
ceremony
Cody,
itself-
what's his name?
The ceremony itself is Shinnecock,
Yeah.
so it's from New England.
Okay.
So they co-opted it and made it for all nations?
Yeah, understand that at the time what was going on, they feared that we were gonna rise up with the ghost dance. So they wanted to do a number of things, ultimately assimilate us, and powwows were a way of allowing us to have spirituality, but not go so far as to have a spirituality that they felt threatened by.
Straggling.
Oops.
But if you ever get a chance, if you're in states that have powwows, you really should go see one. The dancing, it's a spiritual event for us. Every time the drumstick touches the drum, it's our prayers to the Creator. When that drumstick touches the drum, the dancer's foot will hit the ground. So if the drums go faster, the dancers go faster. The prayers, the sounds, the music, the songs are prayers to the Creator, just like the sacred pipe, the smoke, and it's not wacky tobacco. It's not the crazy stuff that people think it is, but that's our prayers again to the Creator. So it's a big part of our ceremonies. So when I go to a powwow and I see the traditional dancers and I'll see somebody dancing the opposite direction, we just had an incident with that. That was really funny. I don't know if I told you about it, but there was a so-called natives claimed to have been just up in arms about a native dancing in the opposite direction. But each nation has their own form of ceremonies and spirituality. That individual was Lakota, and he dances the opposite direction to balance the circle of life. You know, and it's just like, I was just amazed that he had made such an issue out of it and really had no idea what he's talking about. So there are a lot of different ceremonies that people aren't aware of. Even natives aren't, and not natives, of course, he was not, but they're aware of it.
So,
Yes.
if you ever hear of a powwow, powwows are everywhere. Go on to powwows.com.
Yeah, that's the best place.
That's it. Powwows, not powwow. Powwows with an S.com.
Yeah.
They have it in Ohio, Michigan. They're everywhere. I'll be going to one up here in Brighton, Michigan. There's one next month, and next to it will be Monroe, Michigan. Monroe Powwow. I'll be there. There's one down in Evansville. I don't know if you know where Evansville is. That's southern Ohio. I usually go there. There's one in right up here, Mohican. Who has ever gone to Mohican?
I used to go, I don't go anymore.
It's they have a competition powwow. There's competition powwows. I mean, there's a lot of natives do their different styles. They depend on their regalia. Some of them are fully beaded. You would not believe some of these.
The sodium quality, just unbelievable. Years and years to make.
Yeah, a lot of them are fully beaded. They're like maybe tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. The biggest powwow, one of the biggest powwows is going on right now, and it's called the Gathering of Nations. So if you type in Gathering of Nations on Google, you'll see 3,000 dancers, and I don't know how many drums they have there. Just,
Yeah, I think they have 15. 2 years ago, I competed in it.
it's just huge. It's the biggest. It's in an auditorium. I don't even know if that's a college auditorium or not. But
It's where they play basketball.
it's huge, and it's just wall-to-wall Indians.
I thought they were having it there again this year.
I heard they
No,
did.
they moved it.
Oh.
It used to be in the pit. They moved it because of fire issues.
So they're not having it there anymore.
They moved it into a state stadium now.
Oh, okay.
They're in it's called the Coliseum.
It was
It's-
pretty small. You ever been to one? It's pretty,
No.
pretty small. I mean,
This
the
one-
building was small. You were packed. You literally were packed trying to walk around.
yeah, the
it's
Coliseum.
unbelievable.
The Coliseum is bigger. They actually fit 3,000 in there.
Yeah, it's just a wonder. They have grand entry that takes an hour, and grand entry is when all the dancers come in, and they come in single file, two files, and it's just unbelievable. It just sends shivers down your spine when you watch it. It's just unbelievable. Music is just beautiful. The food's great. Good Indian
So if you
food.
guys ever
I've
want to
never
go
been a
one,
fan of
I mean,
powwows.
they're everywhere in Ohio.
That's by far the best powwow I've ever
I
gone to.
have gone to interact with native people,
Yeah,
you know.
that's the reason why I go.
But
Yeah.
other than that, the vendors are the ones that I have been to. I've been to a few in Colorado, and I've been to some here, and I've been in some in Michigan, and some in New Mexico, and the vendors predominantly are not native.
Yeah, that's sad.
And I'm sorry, but I always got the feeling, and they treated me in a manner that gave me the feeling that they did not like Native people.
Right.
So that has been my experience with going to powwows, and since I am around Native people a whole bunch, I just stay away from it myself personally.
Yeah, there's a lot of powwows now that's run by Boy Scouts, and they always call themselves wannabes. I don't know why, but a lot of them
I
are
mean,
ran.
they're calling themselves wannabes?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, they're called
My
wannabes.
teachers. Wow.
They call themselves wannabes. They want to be natives, but they try to imitate us. There are a lot of their teachings are so different that I don't like them sometimes. I said that's not how you're supposed to do it. But they have other people say, oh yeah, this is how we run it. This is how we're gonna run it. So okay, whatever. So I pack up my stuff and leave. Sometimes.
I didn't know that. I never knew that. I used to put a powwow on for 16 years in Cleveland. And it was fun, but it's just a lot of work.
No, it is a lot of work to
Way
put it
too
on.
much work. I'm too old
Yeah,
for it now.
we used to put it on all the time.
Are the nations that participate getting like paid for this, like compensated in some way?
It's Gatherings of Nation is a competition powwow.
Okay, but like they have vendors there, so.
Oh,
vendors.
tons of vendors. There's also different cultures that dance there, like the Aztecs.
Mm-hmm.
They come there. There's the Pueblo. I don't know if you've seen the women that have pottery on their heads.
Mm-hmm.
They're called Pueblo women that dance there. There's Muscaleros. I'm a Muscalero. They're called Gans. They go up there. They dance too. I mean, when you go up there, it's like a one stop. You know every culture almost. Just
Oh, yeah,
about
yeah.
every culture you go there, you'll be amazed.
Great.
How are white vendors like coming in and?
I mean, it's a money-making opportunity, so
Yeah.
as with, yes, there's a ceremonial aspect to it, but it's run, you know, like you run any sort of venue. Got to make a profit. So the people who are competition have to submit an entry fee. The people who are vendors have to submit a vendor application, et cetera. You know, so the logistics of it, a lot of work, as Bob said, and I mean, you told me at one point that here you were turning a profit, and then at one point you guys weren't turning a
Right,
profit.
the economy started to change. But, you know, like with our powwow, we required the vendors to have tribal enrollments. And that way we knew that traditionally they were passing on the, you know, traditional style foods and the dancers are tribally enrolled. The money is generated at the gate. When I put on the powwow, I didn't have a cent. We generated it through advertising, we generated it through people paying to get in, even though they were donating it, because you can't charge if you're using a state park. But we would generate, our you know, dancers go to powwows because they can make thousands of dollars. What's the highest number you heard of or you know of that they pay
Well, I
dancers?
won $1,500 one time.
But it goes up to $5,000 or $10,000 depending on who's putting the powwow on.
I came in first finally.
Okay, so a lot of dancers come because they make a lot of money. Well, the powwow's got to pay for it, so we have to generate enough money. And the only way to bring people in is for me, is because I had so much trouble with traditional dancers coming in, and they were non-Indians, and they were giving a lot of misinformation about who Indians were. So I changed it to a competition, which means you had to prove you're Indian, but we also had to pay prizes for the dancing. So our prizes would be about $20,000. I had to generate $20,000 at the gate. Now, not just the minimum of that, and then plus everything else that we did. Our powwows cost $40,000 a year, and I didn't have any money. I did it by generating at the gate, but because the economy started changing, and I'm not gonna rip anybody off, I stopped it. Because the last year, we were $2,000 in the hole, and a councilman from the city of Cleveland gave us the money so we could pay everybody off. See, and so I stopped it. But dancers, I mean, a lot of Indian families, Native families, all they do is the powwow circuit. They go from one powwow to another powwow and win prizes, and they make enough money for the whole year until the next year. It's really cool.
Yeah, you were on your 11th year or something like that?
16th year.
16th
Yeah,
anniversary.
that's a long time.
16th.
And the first powwow I put on, I had no idea what I was doing. I never put a powwow out in my life. I just knew a lot of people, and I'm calling everybody up, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I brought a lot of people in, but there's no school on how to put a powwow on, you know. You just got to do it. Yes.
Who often puts on powwow?
You know, usually it's Indian organizations, Native organizations. So you might have like an Indian center like ours in Cleveland. Sundance might put one on. You know, Indian organizations that, you know the community, know the people, that either want to do a traditional to bring people together, there's no money involved, or do a competition which brings everybody together. Competition was my real choice, besides why I went to competition, is because it educates people, Indians and non-Indians alike. That was the point. And we found so many Indians that didn't know anything about being an Indian. Just like I mentioned, somebody danced in the opposite direction. I had Indians coming up to me and complaining when they did it at my powwow. I said, you don't know what that means? I mean, that's traditional, it's balancing the circle. But, so we're trying to teach everybody. That was the whole, my goal was education. You know, if we could make some money, yeah, but for the most part, we never made a profit. We broke even, but it was to educate people.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. You had to get the drums. Drums is the most expensive ones, because a drum, there's like 10 people or five guys on one drum, and everyone gets paid.
And you gotta feed everybody too.
And feed everybody, and feed all the dancers,
Yeah.
and feed the vendors. And it's goes up into the thousands. I mean, if I was a rich person, I would put on a powwow.
There are a couple that are put on here. The one that's down at Mohican is not run by any Native organization.
No, it's not.
Great.
And they actually had for a long time been passing themselves off as part of a powwow run by the Mohican Reservation.
Yeah, they said
And
it's,
one of my very first things that I did when I became executive director, I sent them a letter saying, there are no Native reservations in Ohio, and what you are doing is misleading the public. And every time after that, you got that little line underneath saying not,
people actually thought it was a real Indian Mohawk reservation. Literally, they thought it was, and it's not.
And so, who puts them on? People who find that the event is somehow fulfilling for them, and people who find that they can make a profit.
It's actually owned by a campsite. It's a campsite. Somebody else had a question? Yes.
I had one question, was like, how heavy is wearing all of your garments when you're dancing?
Wow. Yeah.
All my stuff, my breastplate alone is probably about 45 pounds.
Buffalo bone.
Everything is out of buffalo bone. The beads are solid brass. Because it's about that long. Everything's handmade by me. Plus my choker, that's buffalo bone, or they call hair pipe. And
That was
so-
the original bulletproofing, by the way.
Yeah.
Breastplate and thwarted the arrows. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Go ahead.
I was going to get to that.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
And the chokers, that's all hair bone beads. The beads are solid brass. My bustle, they call it the bustle. That's alone is probably about 30 pounds, not 30 pounds, maybe about 20 pounds because of the eagle. All my garments plus the bells, everything, I weighed it one time. It came out to like 60 something pounds. And trying to dance to that in humid weather.
And then when you sweat, it adds more.
Because everything is just, you're totally sweat. I mean, it's hot.
You had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering what your education was like before the boarding schools and then after the boarding schools.
Okay, my education was a normal thing. Okay, let me versus white and my tradition. My tradition was my dad taught me how to live off the land, what food not to eat, what how to speak a how to speak Navajo the traditional way and not to slang it. A lot of today's Navajo is slang. How to live a traditional life, how to be respectful to one another, what to do when you see a person, how to shake a hand. I mean, everything was based on respect. That's how it was taught. Was being taught traditionally. Not to be more respectful for the land towards the animals, how to treat an animal, how to when it's time to butcher a sheep, because that's food. How to pray before you kill. Where to go to pick a plant, which plant to pick, how to pick it. Clothing, clothing's from sheep, wool. You cut the wool. Shear the sheep, make it into wool blankets. Everything comes from that. That's what I was taught. Everything was from nature. Now, if it wasn't for the school, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be talking this way. I wouldn't be dressed. I'll be still dressed this way, but I'll be talking both languages, but poorly. I'll have poor language. I won't be talking good English. You know what I mean? I'll be talking choppy, but my language will be full Navajo, which they still are. It's dying out right now. A lot of the newer kids, they don't know nothing about Navajo. They can't talk Navajo no more. We're losing that culture. But I would have been pretty much full Navajo. I wouldn't be educated. I'll probably be educated, but in a Navajo sense. You know what I mean? I'll be rich in my culture, but in the white culture, I'm struggling. But I know what to expect. I know how to talk, what to expect, how things are run or ran, what I expect around the corner. For I don't know how to say it. What will come next? I think English has taught me a lot. There's a lot of bumps around it. There's a lot of things to learn. I'm still learning. I'm surprised that I don't talk like the rest. There's a res talk. I don't know. I don't know how to talk. I don't speak res. But surprisingly, I can talk English clearly because that's one thing I think the boarding school system, that I can talk clearly, where I can try to pronounce the word properly. That's one thing I will thank the boarding school for that. And I was able to write. That's probably the only thing that I will thank the boarding schools for. Right now, it is benefiting me now. Back when I was a kid, that wouldn't be benefiting me because why am I learning all this bullshit? But now it is benefiting, and now I can understand what goes on. I can hear and see what's everything, what everybody's doing or saying now. It's a good thing, I guess.
Yes.
I have another question for you. You were saying that the power is something weird because it's sort of like taking spirituality that was threatening and then turning it into like a non-threatening version of spirituality. Like, I'm just wondering sort of how that worked. Like, what parts of the spirituality were like really unacceptable, like at the boarding school or for white people, and sort of how that worked, like how the sort of more traditional traditional stuff? Like what parts of that weren't okay and what parts like sort of were accepted at the powwows? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
You wanna answer that?
I can hardly hear you, so I was hoping you can hear. Could you hear?
I heard. So, let me see if I understand the question. So the question, I had said something about how powwows were sort of co-opting Native spirituality because there was a larger threat perceived by the federal government. And so I was talking specifically about that, and you're talking about the spirituality at the boarding schools?
No, I'm just curious about more of your thoughts on that, like how that works, or just more info. I thought I was like, oh.
Okay, so we live in an age here where many people call themselves spiritual, and many people call themselves religious, but we don't have the same spirituality nor religious fervor, many of us, as our ancestors did, right? And so because we live in a technological age, it is so easy for us to switch into this right brain mentality where everything has to be linear and logical, otherwise it doesn't make sense to us and we cannot relate to it. That's not where we come from, right? The drive to push us to assimilate has been a drive to push us to that right brain, linear, logical thinking. And in doing that, divorce us from our spirituality. Traditionally, indigenous people first and foremost give thanks to their ancestors, right? You can go far back as you want and give thanks to the Creator as your ultimate ancestor, and many people do. But around the world, the one thing that we have in common is, we believe that we have a spiritual connection still with our ancestors. When a person dies, the ancestors is, who comes to lead you into the next world. And, many people call themselves Christian. It doesn't say this in the Bible, but they believe that when they die, their mother's going to come to them. Their father's going to come. They're going to see their aunt that they loved when they were a child. They're going to see their grandmother. So, this idea that there is a connection that people make to the spirit world that exists outside of the technological age that we live in is still there. Not necessarily as strong as it has been in the past. For us, when you look back at how our ancestors have spoken in the past, we talk a lot about, and we have talked a lot about, the Indians who were killed here so the people who wanted to take our land could be successful. And part of what happens when you read the language and read the words of our ancestors, they talk a lot about spirits. So the people who are in power here, 200 years ago, when they heard Native people talk about spirits, they believed spirits, right? And when that man who they named that city after in Washington State, who does not like his name to be spoken, because for his people, just like for my people, speaking the name of a person who has passed on, you do not do that. Well, they named a city after him, and every day, to counteract Native spirituality, they use his name, use his name, use his name. One of the things that he said was that every place you go in this country, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, a dead native is standing next to you. And no matter what you do, you cannot escape that reality, because our spirits walk, and they walk amongst us, and they certainly walk amongst you, and they're looking at everything. Well, as you can imagine, that type of talk does not go over very well with certain types of people. The people in the past were white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and they were very Christian. And when you spoke this language, that made them fear, because here, that's devil talk. That's devil talk. And so that's not the only time we've engaged in what they call devil talk, right? We engage in when that holy man from the Utes who gave us the ghost dance, which was one of our first pan-Indian ceremonies, right? It was open to anyone who was a native person. The idea was, in doing the ghost dance, you would bring the ancestors back. The buffalo would come back. The native way of life would come back. And so for these people who feared so much that they were going to have to, at some point, pay for all their crimes, well, you can see then why the incentive might be, let's get these people onto a spiritual path that we don't find threatening. So, they killed Bigfoot at Wounded Knee because they feared his people were practicing the ghost dance and trying to bring back the ancestors of the buffalo to drive all the white people away. So they've shown that they will go so far to do whatever they can to divorce us from their spirituality. It should not be surprising to us that they choose to take different tactics at different times. So, yes, the powwow, as coming from the BIA, came from them as a way to make themselves feel better, assimilate us in a way that did not make them fear, right? Our spirituality would not cause them fear. And which is, strange when you think about it, because they talked about our spirituality as devil ways, devil worshiping. Yet they came up with this pan-Indian ceremony that they invited us all to do. So, as with anything that comes from this system, you have to question it. And for people who are not practicing their traditional ways, the ways of their people, which pretty much comprises most of us as indigenous people, as I said many times before, the songs that we sang when we were doing everyday things to connect us to the spirit. Many of us don't have those songs. Many of us don't have the prayers. Many of us don't have the other ceremonial aspects, whether that be the regalia or the accoutrements or, any of the knowledge to perform certain rituals. A lot of that was by design. A lot of that continues to be by design. And we all fall victim to it, no matter how smart we think we are. Because the forces that are arrayed against us, have an infinite wealth. Right? The forces that are arrayed against us is the capitalist society that is based on exploitation of the earth that we call our mother. Right? Exploiting the earth exploits all the people on the earth. So, in any case, the spirituality, the traditional spirituality that we have lost, we have to make up in some fashion. We're still not saying we want to be Christian, many of us. So the powwow fulfills that need to get together with other like-minded people and to worship in a fashion that is our fashion. Might not be our traditional fashion, but it is the fashion that we own. It is some persons, some Native people's traditional fashion, and, you know, that's acceptable to us. But as with many things in this culture, you know, what we do as Native people, how we express ourselves as Native people, those things change as the time changes. And, you know, we feel open in certain times to do certain things and less open in other times to do certain things. We find that, so like the environment that we're in now, you know, we're past the 70s and the 80s where all the young white kids would wear mohawks, right? We feel now that we can come out with traditional hairstyle. We can wear our hair long, right? We can wear some of the hairstyles of our people. Why? Because young white kids made it okay for us to do that, right? Bob was talking about briefly, very briefly, about why he went to a competition powwow. Because many people who were coming to the powwow as dancers were not indigenous people, they were not Native people. But these are the people who, A, carry on some of this knowledge that has been denied to many of us as indigenous people, you know, and B, make the things that they do, you know, that they're doing within, under the rubric of some sort of Native spirituality, but they make it acceptable amongst other white people for us to express ourselves. So, you know, as I said before, currently it's popular to be Native. We're not being oppressed. Many people, by not being oppressed, I mean they're not hunting us to kill us as, you know, the culture has done in the past. Yes, we're certainly oppressed, as, you know, Bill shared that story about the football team with him, you know, with us. But we are in an environment and in an atmosphere where it is more acceptable for us now to express our teachings and our traditions without fear of reprisal. Now, I come from a tradition where we lived amongst our colonizers for 200 years, hiding amongst them because still, you know, the term American Indian never came up in my house. I had to ask one day where all the Indians went. And they were just horrified. No one ever used the term. Why? Because we never used the term amongst anybody else. But of the people in the community who knew us, they all knew we were Native. They never used the term because it was not popular at the time in that area to be an indigenous person. Or if you were, it was permissible if you were not practicing those devil ways, right? Just like the history books here that talk about the history of Ohio and talk about how the Christian Delawares were killed and how that was unfortunate, but don't mention about all the other Native people who were killed trying to take over Ohio and how equally unfortunate those murders were. So it shouldn't be surprising, you know, there's a long answer to a short question, but it shouldn't be surprising to us that the same people who wanted to do away with us in some fashion came up with something that has ultimately benefited us, but maybe was not designed to benefit us originally, and was designed more to benefit our colonizers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Good. I have to go.
And one thing, if you ever want to ask about our culture, and if you see an elder, always offer tobacco. Always. If not, you'll be insulting them. You know, a cigarette, just break it in half. I mean, without the filter, just give it to ask a question. That's for an elder. Always offer tobacco.
So how many more times are we meeting?
Well, I think a good chunk of us here will be here next week for commencement, so we could figure out a day that works and meet next week, and then most of us will be scattering for a few months, so.
I have to go to Pennsylvania next weekend. I'll be gone over the weekend. I'll be back Monday. I can do classes anytime after that, or Sundance can handle the class on Sunday if you want.
Well, not tomorrow, but Monday after is the day where we go down to city council and talk about the Indigenous Peoples' Day.
What date is that?
That's 15th.
Can I maybe email the class with information for that? And then
Sure,
we can come and also send it out to other people.
sure, I can do that.
Do you know what time that would be at?
Well, we're supposedly on the agenda, so I'm not quite sure when we are on the agenda, but the council meeting starts at 6.
Okay, so evening.
Right.
We could maybe do a class beforehand, or I don't know if you all would wanna do that, it might be kind of tight, but.
I'm thinking that's gonna be fine for me,
Okay,
but I
sounds
don't wanna
good.
speak for Bob.
Is that Monday or something?
Not tomorrow, but next Monday.
Yeah, I could do that. I have another guest speaker, Jeff Pierce, and he was gonna talk about, he's the spokesman for the American Indian Movement of Ohio. He was gonna speak of two-spirited people. He's two-spirited. And he's going to give a perspective of urban and res, and, you know, I think it'd be an interesting class. So we could probably tentatively plan that for next Monday then.
I won't be here because I don't have a
Well,
car.
Yeah, I guess. I wanted to get Jean.
I could pick you up
I
again.
wanted to get Jean Simon here, but she's traveling. So
Okay.
she won't be back until Sunday, but she's gonna be at the city council on Monday because I tasked her with heading that up. But she'd also be a great person to talk here because I want people to know how wide the native experience is. You know, the diaspora that we're talking about is 2 continents, all the islands, right? Her people were kidnapped from New England and sold into slavery in Bermuda. Right? And so for 500 years, they were calling those people Mohawks, knowing that they weren't Mohawks, by the way. You know, but in any case, had them sequestered in a small little island, you know, in Bermuda, that they really only made a bridge out to until in the 1920s. So I would love to get her to talk to you guys, but I'm not sure that's gonna be possible before you break up.
Well, we could maybe have a couple of classes over commencement. I don't know like how many students would be here. I know I would definitely be here. Like, I don't know what we would.
We can try and schedule like 2 for that week.
Well, why don't you just send me some tentatives and
Okay.
and to Sundance as well. And I'll bring Bill if we can, and Jeff, and, well, at least for not this Monday coming up, but the following Monday, kind of plan something so that we could utilize the time that we have, which is not much, I know, but to get as much in as we can.
Yeah.
You know, all of us feel the same way about getting as much in. You know, I wish we had more time. We're gonna have to wait till fall, but, you know, to really do a really good class, 2-3 hours. You know. Anyway, so we'll do that. But I do have to go. I gotta take my grandchildren roller skating now.
I have to go hunting.
I roller skate too.